The BYU Cougars are in Florida to take on the UCF Knights. What is life like on the road when you have to travel 2 time zones away and literally stand in the shadows of Disney World? We're going to ask a guy who's very familiar with this in Connor Pay.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. And as always, thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Happy game day eve. The BYU Cougars are getting ready for their match against the UCF Knights tomorrow afternoon down in Orlando. And that's where we bring in BYU team captain Connor Pay to the conversation for his weekly chat here on the show. Connor, I want to start here. When you travel 2 time zones, you guys travel early in the week relative to your typical trips. How much more of a burden or anything else does it add to your guys' plate when you have to go to a place like Orlando?
It's not too bad, honestly. I mean, the only difference is we fly there a day earlier, and so we spend 1 extra day there, just so your body gets the chance to adjust to, the new time zone. And also, there's so many things we're doing throughout the week to prepare us to have that adjustment. The number one thing and the biggest issue is your sleep schedule.
Okay.
The time zones mess up your sleep schedule where it's like, okay, we're going to wake up at 8:30 on game day, and you think, 8:30, that's not bad at all. But it's in reality, it's 6:30 on Utah time. So our body clocks, it's like we're waking up at 6:30. So the sports science team came in on Monday and said, okay, guys, you're all waking up at 6:30 this whole week. Just so your body kind of gets used to getting up at that time and getting moving. And so I think as long as you adjust and prepare for it, it's really not anything other than an inconvenience.
Well, fair enough. Now, before we continue to look forward, I want to look back for a moment. I was looking through some of the photos that BYU Photo put out after that thrilling win over Oklahoma State, and there's a really good photo of you. I probably should have pulled it and thrown it up on YouTube for everybody. But you got your arms extended, and you can tell that you're on your scooter celebrating. What was that like as the pandemonium erupted after Jake Retzloff hit Darius Lassiter for that game winner?
Well, I mean, it was really emotional, just because, none of us on the sideline were surprised. We all expected, and for me at least, I'm used to being on the field in those situations. And so I have to say, it's a lot more stressful watching on the sideline because I have no control over what's happening, where it's like at center, I can make sure that my snap is good and I can make sure that I protect the quarterback and do my part on the sideline. I'm just staring there watching like, come on, Bruce, turn the protection the right way or, and block the right people. And, they protected really well that whole drive. So it was fun to watch. But I think it's just the emotions of just like, what? Like you can manifest. Kalani's talked a lot to us about manifesting and how it's like through your belief in each other and your belief in yourself, you can manifest good things to happen. And so immediately after Oklahoma State scored there, with about a minute left, we looked up at the clock and we're like, nobody flinched. Everyone's like, well, geez, they left us way too much time. And, it was like, at least in my career, I don't know if there's a better team in the country at going down and scoring in less than a minute. I think I've been a part of at least 7 or 8 of those drives in my career. And so for us, I think A-Rod's the best 2-minute coordinator in the country, and Jake Retzloff is the best 2-minute quarterback I've ever been around. And so for us, it was kind of like, well, this is what we do. Like 2 minutes, kind of our bread and butter in a lot of ways. And so everyone on the sideline was like, all right, let's roll. They left too much time. We're going to go win this thing. And that's what happened.
Now, you mentioned the fact that you're stuck on the sideline there, and you've taken on more of a graduate assistant role while you're healing up from that surgery that you underwent on your foot. What was it like? Because you mentioned it's kind of stressful on the sideline, but when you see Darius evade 2, 3, 4 tackles and get into the end zone, what was the initial emotion? Was it just elation? Like, let's go celebrate?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. And it's like, at first I like started scootering and stuff, trying to get down close to everybody, and then all of a sudden we've got support staff members playing, running onto the field, and it's like, guys, the game's not over. And so for me, I was like so excited, screaming, yelling, and then I was like, wait, I started yelling at people like, get off the field, because we're going to get a 15-yard penalty or something, or I don't know. I was like, we can't have some celebration somehow ruining this play. Like, okay. And so, but
you're,
no,
you're a better coach than you give yourself credit for. If that was your mindset, like celebrate, but hold on, get off the field. You're a better coach than you think you are, sir.
No, I just didn't want that play to get. I didn't want anything to ruin that moment.
Got it. Okay.
And obviously, it would have been after the play. It would have just been a long PAT or a long kick. But you never know. 15 yards on a kickoff can make a big difference.
Yeah.
It might have been enough time for them to freaking get down to the 50 and run a Hail Mary or something. I didn't want to take any chances. And so.
Now, okay, so that got you guys at 7-0. I was talking with Isaiah Banya earlier this week, and I essentially asked him the question. At 7-0, life's pretty good for you guys inside the BYU football program. It's just you're 7-0, you're riding high right now. Give me a sense just how the vibe around the team is at the moment.
I think the vibe around the team right now is it's gritty and hungry.
Okay.
Because we're 7-0, but we were picked as the underdog again.
Mm-hmm.
This week, and so it's you never want to. I think A-Rod talks about this all the time, where he says it's like everyone who was telling us that we weren't worth a crap all off season and in the preseason, that was all BS, and then and then all the people saying that we're headed to the college football playoff and this great team, that's BS too. Like our job is to do everything we can to go 1-0 this week. That's it. There is nothing else that matters in your season, because you will never lose because you are focused too hard on being 1-0 that week. You will lose, or you can lose, if you're focused too much on what's down the line. And so as long as we keep that mindset, and it was a tough week of practice. The guys grinded because guys were pissed that we're picked as underdogs again, and we have a chip on our shoulder, and I think that's a good place to be.
All right, you mentioned that chip on your shoulder, the underdog, because quite literally, you guys are listed as an underdog with our friends over at FanDuel. We will delve more into that matchup, what you're expecting from UCF, what to expect. You guys take on the Knights inside what they like to call the bounce house down in Orlando. We'll get to that momentarily as you roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends, new old friend, I should say, back with us here on the Locked On Podcast Network in Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks is here for you guys to let you have fun with your sports knowledge. The best part about being a valued Prize Picks partner is you guys can use all the knowledge you accumulate from watching all the games you do to win money. It's as simple as that. It's a really, really fun way that you can win up to 100 times your money with our friends at Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. It's really as simple as that. If you sign up today, you get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't have to win on that $5 entry to get the $50. It's all guaranteed. It's all courtesy of friends at Prize Picks. They put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, like mine have, I get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes. Think about that. It's a quick payout. And the best part is Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which players are falling by the wayside. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds. Turn your sports opinions into real money all season long with our friends over at Prize Picks. So take advantage of it today. Download the app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's all courtesy of your friends over at Prize Picks, and they are, as I like to say, where you can run your game. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. Rolling on here with Connor Pay, BYU team captain. And Connor, appreciate you carving out some time because obviously you guys have had a really busy week, as you mentioned, getting ready for this one. I got a great question here that I want to let you answer this because it comes in from a Locked On Cougars Insider Group member, Lanny. He says, does the longer week, now that you guys have 8 days of preparation for this UCF game, create longer or shorter days?
Probably a little bit shorter. Just in the sense that we're recording this at it's 9:20 right now p.m. and I just got home about 25 minutes ago.
And
Where last week
you've texted me. You've texted me 2 days in a row and said, "Hey, I'm grinding over here." So, hey, intern life's treating you well, apparently.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think because let's see, it's Wednesday. I left the facility tonight at about 8 or so.
Yeah.
Got there at 7:00 this morning, but last week I was leaving the facility closer to 9 or 10.
Okay.
Most nights, and so it just shaves off a couple hours because I was able to spread out everything I needed to do over a normal amount of time. And so it makes it like a little bit shorter. I guess the 8th day doesn't really do that much because UCF played on Saturday.
Yeah.
And so we got a whole new influx of data from a new game on Saturday. And so it's like getting all that data inputted into the system and all that stuff. We really couldn't get it going with everything included until Sunday. And so it was a pretty normal week on that front.
Now, in terms of preparation, got another good question here. And essentially it asks, it comes from Scott. What is the number one key in Connor's mind to BYU getting the win over UCF?
Execution.
Okay.
I think the key for us is just to do our job exactly how we're expected to do it. Nothing more, nothing less. Like I think some of our struggles, some of our turnovers, some of the things like that were because we were kind of pressing a little too hard, we were playing outside of ourselves a little bit last week, where it's like we were playing hero ball a little bit, where it was like, hey, you're doing a little too much. Like all you need to do is your 111th. And I think the defense faced similar issues where it's like they've been playing so well. Everyone's like, oh man, I want to make the big play. I'm going to get the turnover, and they got caught out of gaps a few times. And so I think one of the big emphasis we've had as from Kalani and from the captains this week is just let's get back to the basics of just doing your 111th. We're at our best when everyone's doing what they're expected to do. Nothing more, nothing less. Because if you do more, that's not what your teammate next to you is expecting, and there could be issues on offense and defense. And so I think that's the key to this game. Do your 111th exactly how you're expected to do it.
Well, and I can appreciate that because I think some Cougar fans, Kalani kind of talked about a post game, particularly on the defense. He felt like guys were going beyond the scope of what they were supposed to do within the context of the defense, and it caused some of the issues you guys had against Oklahoma State, particularly on the defensive side of the football. But it makes sense to the rest of the team. Obviously, you all got to do your job. That makes sense. Now, conversely, question here from John. Connor, after seeing the game tape of Iowa State and UCF, which you mentioned, you guys got an extra data point with that game. What is your biggest concern for this matchup, and how well does BYU match up with the Knights?
Well, I think we match up well. I think one of the greatest advantages they have is just the mental advantage of just the fact that they're 3-4. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, they are freaking good. And you saw that as they took a really solid Iowa State team down to the wire.
Yeah.
I think Jake Retzloff said this earlier in the week in his press conference. I couldn't agree more. They're the best 3-4 team in America. And I think for us, from an offensive line perspective, this is the best interior defensive line we've faced so far this year. And so that's going to be a big test for us is handling their two good nose guards, their D tackle and their nose guard. They're both really solid players. And so I think it's a good challenge for Waylon, Bruce, and Austin, this week to kind of rise to the occasion where we face some really good defensive ends, and Kym and Caleb have risen to the occasion. And now it's now the interior three get a chance to do that. And so I'm pretty fired up to go watch them do it.
Now, you can't answer this question directly because you're not down there in the UCF offices, but you are an offensive lineman, and you obviously have a big role to play in a successful run game if it's going to be successful, because you guys have to make the blocks. So there was a question sent in asking the question, what are Connor's thoughts on last week's game, and what is the key to stopping UCF's run game? So I want your perspective on this. What is the number one thing that could slow down a vaunted rushing attack like UCF? Because they ran for 350 yards last week against Iowa State.
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier: discipline, assignment, sound defense.
Okay.
They were catching Iowa State out of gaps left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, Iowa State runs a really unique 3-3-5 U defense is what we call it. And sometimes in that defense, sometimes it's really difficult to run the ball against it. But if you catch it just right, there's seams all over the place. And so so part of me is kind of thinking about that too. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at last week, how our defense kind of gave up more rushing yards than we're accustomed to.
Yeah.
This year is simply because they didn't play assignment sound, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think it comes back to what we talked about earlier too, where they're just pressing a little too much, trying to force the big play.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, if you just do your job, the big plays will come. And I think that's the key: play assignment sound defense, gap sound defense. You know, and I think obviously their running back is really talented, and you can play perfectly assignment sound defense, and sometimes a great player is going to get 6, 7, 8 yards. Sometimes that's just the way it is in football. But if those are in the minority and the majority are 2, 3, 4 yard runs, then I think we're going to be in good shape.
All right. One more. I need you to take off the intern hat and the offensive line coach hat. I need you to put on the counselor hat. Can you do that for me?
Oh, geez. I'm definitely not qualified, but I'll try.
You'll do your best. All right. So this question comes from Tanner. I'm honestly nervous about UCF, especially after seeing how BYU struggled with Oklahoma State's run game. UCF's running attack might be even better. Connor, can you help ease my nerves or give me some reassurance? That comes from Tanner.
Well, I think the answer to my last question should give you a little bit of reassurance. And a lot of the wounds against Oklahoma State were self-inflicted. Mm-hmm. Very rarely was it just them blowing us off the ball and we're getting knocked back and just physically getting beat up. That wasn't the case. It was guys not being in the gap they were supposed to be in, or doing the assignment they were supposed to do because they were, you know, pressing a little too hard to try to make the big play. You know what, I think and then sometimes, a lot of times, to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot you can do with great rushing attack teams. The way you beat them is by containing it. Yeah. Where it's like, look, in the stat sheet at the end of the day, they may have 200 yards rushing. But if it took 50 carries to get there, then that's a win, right? Yeah. And that's a win. And so I think this week is going to be limiting the explosive plays in the run game. You know, just try to keep them in you know, short gains as much as we can. And I think the defense, I think it was almost you know, it's good to kind of have a little bit of a humbling experience in a win. Yeah. You know, in a win. I think that was kind of was for the defense, because a lot of the guys are like, man, we gotta reset, get back to who we are. And I think that's what they've done in practice this week. And so I think they're gonna do a good job. But just know that the stat sheet at the end of the day doesn't tell the full story. Watch the game, and if we're making them earn every single yard, then you know what, that's we're playing good run defense.
Well, and I'll add one thing to this. On the stat sheet, there's a stat I look at more than most. It's called yards per play. That tells you, I think, more than most. Like, you can look at yards per carry, yards per attempt on passing. Yards per play overall will tell you a lot more than anything else. I'll just add that on the stat sheet side of things. All right. Got a few more questions for you, Connor. Also some other thoughts on UCF. We'll get to those momentarily as we wrap up this edition of Locked On Cougars momentarily. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And we talk about FanDuel a lot. Obviously, they are America's #1 sports book. And of course, you this NFL season, or really any other season, you can get a great start with a big return on FanDuel, as once again, they are America's #1 sports book. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Simple as that. $200 bonus bets guaranteed. All you got to do is place a $5 bet and you take advantage of it today. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bet. If you're like Connor, you believe that BYU BYU is being disrespected by being an underdog, according to our friends over at FanDuel in this game on Saturday. We'll take advantage of this offer today from our friends at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to get started today. Once again, that's FanDuel.com, and it's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, who are, once again, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day. If you would like to ask questions to Connor Pay, we'll join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. The link's in the show notes below, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to it wherever you get your podcast. Join us today. It's a 14-day free trial, and join up, and you'll be able to lobby questions at Connor on these weekly editions we do with him right here on the podcast. All right, Connor, before we go on today's show, have a question I'm going to read literally verbatim. It comes from a good friend of ours, Mark. He lives up in Idaho. He's been a dear friend, a longtime listener, and he literally puts this in quotes. I'm going to read it just straight out to you, Connor. I'm going to let you take it whichever way you want. So he says, please ask Connor this, quote, is it frustrating to you and your teammates that seemingly nobody in the country thinks this 7-0 record is real, given the massive disrespect I'm hearing from pundits all over the country and also by the odds makers from Las Vegas? Personally, I'm pretty tired of the massive disrespect for our team, and I am only a fan. Unquote.
I mean, sure. You know, obviously, you know, you want, you know, in our minds, you know, we've won some big games, you know, and you know, we've earned 7 wins so far, you know, and so I don't know how much farther it goes outside of it being a motivator. Mm-hmm. For us, I'm not sure if we think of it any more than that, you know, just as a way for a little extra fuel. Okay. You know, every week when we saw we were underdogs this week, it's like just a reminder, you know, what people really think about you. Still, they don't think you're worth anything, you know, and so I would say that yes, in the sense that's a motivating thing every week. You know, there's always a little extra edge to try to prove the doubters wrong. But as far as being like so sick of it that everyone's talking about, blah, 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 like, I don't know if we think about it that much. Okay. You know, I don't think it goes much further past just being a motivator for us.
Well, that's what it should serve as. It should serve as motivation. That's Kalani's talked about it a lot. He's like, here's the thing. If we go out and play our game and they beat us, we can live with the results. But you control what you can control. And I fully endorse that, obviously. Now, another good question here from Daniel. And he asked this. I know everybody is focused on the next game, but have the coaches ever talked about the goal to make it to the Big 12 championship game or the college football playoff to you as players?
Yeah, of course. You know, that's our goal as a team, you know, is to go play for and win a conference championship. Mm-hmm. You know, but I think it's always talked about in the sense of like, yes, that is our ultimate goal, but how we get there is by being where your feet are. You know, it's like we're process driven, not results driven. You know, and when you focus on the process, those results will take care of themselves. And so it's like, yes, we have this great team overarching goal that we want to win a conference championship, but we're focused on what's right here, you know, what's right in front of our faces. And right now that's UCF. You can't win a conference championship unless you go 1-0 this week, you know, and that's kind of the overall message. It's like, yes, that's the goal that we have in the back of our minds, and coaches reference it sometimes, but always in the context of, well, if you really want to achieve that, win the day, you know, win this lift, you know, attack this training session, attack this practice, have your best practice of the year. You know, it's like, if that's really your ultimate goal, then show us, you know, show me. All right. And how you prepare every day and earn the right to play well on Saturdays.
You joined us during the summer, and I'm just going to add this for context sake on that. And you used the term stacking days, and you weren't the only one. I talked with many of your teammates as well, and it's exactly what you're talking about. You have to be able to stack successful days on top of one another, because if you let one slip, guess what? That means you're not winning that day, and that means that could affect you down the line. And that goes to your point that, hey, focus on the here and now, accomplish what you have in front of you, and just let the results be what they are.
Exactly.
All right, another good question here. This comes from Marley. He said, I had two questions I wanted to ask. He says, has BYU ever looked at adding any sort of a tush push play for short yardage and QB sneak types? I'll get to the second one in a moment.
Sure. Yeah, we definitely have one. In the playbook, we just haven't really needed it. We've been pretty dang good on short yards this year. It's I don't know what the stats are, but I know we're above 80% on converting on third and fourth and short, I believe. And so we just haven't had to break it out yet. We have plays that we liked against the defenses that they were running, and they've worked.
Well, and I'll just say this, I'm a nerd and I'm a junkie for the offensive line stuff. Seeing Waylon Lapuaho line up at fullback, I got all kinds of giddy looking at that formation. Just add that.
You're not alone.
That's fun. I hope at some point they'll just let Bruce be center just for a play so you can play that position at some point.
I don't know. I think once I'm back, I don't think they want me anywhere but with my hand on that ball.
Okay, fair.
So if anything, if it does happen, it's going to be Bruce in the backfield, not me.
Okay, well, a guy can hope, I guess. Other question here from Marlon. He says, why doesn't BYU do like other teams and do that slow jog off the field to eat up the clock in terms of the extra sub? You know how these 5-yard penalties have been coming and forcing timeouts with the slow jog off the field during those things. He says that needs to be eliminated via a rule change, but why doesn't BYU take advantage of that more? So
are they referencing on defense?
Because you know how the offense, if you guys sub, they allow the defense to sub as well. Well, there's a certain school up north, 40 miles north, that's been routinely utilizing that to force timeouts or get penalties. As they call it a slow jog, because they legitimately, Connor, they are like just moseying off the field. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be a good question to ask Coach Hill.
Okay.
I'm not sure, because I mean, if it's obviously it's legal, so we might as well take advantage of it in my mind. But I think, I don't know. Part of the mindset we have is, well, come run your play. You're not going to get a yard anyways.
Got it.
We're not gonna go the back end way to, forcing you into a timeout or a 5-yard penalty. We're just going to stop you, and so
mindset.
I think it's more of a mindset thing where it's like next play, and we're not worried about finding tricky dick ways to stop people. We're just going to do it, the old fashioned way.
Okay. Last one I've got for you here, and it goes back to last Saturday real quick. Do you watch the cut? I know that as players, you guys are experiencing it in lifetime. Do you watch what the social media team does after the fact with the cut?
Yeah, they do a really good job.
So they do a really good job. And Steven asked this, Caleb Etienne was in tears on the sideline after that game on Saturday. He says, see the cut for that. Very inspiring. Can you expand on that, just about what all went into that?
Well, there was a lot of people who were in tears on the sideline, and, myself included, along with Waylon, as Jake so graciously ratted us out from the podium after the game. I
wasn't going to bring that part up.
It was emotional. Like, excuse me for caring about winning.
He invoked religion. He said it was a spiritual experience. So
it was. Well, I think he's a romantic.
Yeah, he did say that too. Yes,
it was a romantic experience.
Uh-huh.
It was. But anyways, I think that just was the culmination of so many challenges that Caleb's been through over the last 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just with his experience at Oklahoma State, to start 12 games and then to decide to transfer, and then to have your head coach publicly ridicule you and say that you lost the job, to basically have a grown man go after a kid, and it's like, I have a lot of respect for Coach Gundy in certain ways, and that way is not one of them. I think it's pretty childish of him to go after a player like that who left his program because of the way he was running it.
Yeah.
And, Caleb saw the issues, and now they're coming to fruition. They can't seem to win. I think, and then just the way things went last season, where it's like now a lot of the BYU fan base turned on him, and people wanted his head after every single game pretty much that he played in. And, without, and fans didn't have the full context of, that he wasn't being taught, he wasn't, he didn't, he didn't know what to do out there a lot of the time because nobody was showing him how or what. And, a lot of the times in the plays last year, it was my responsibility to tell everybody what to do. Yeah. And then that was my responsibility that was given to me, and that's when I was like, oh, geez, okay, well. And so now just coming back in all of that bull crap that he had to go through to now being one of the highest rated tackles in America, and to just have played extremely well against Oklahoma State. He wanted to beat them so bad last year, and we let that slip through our fingers. And so, I think all those emotions of what that experience was like, having your own head coach turn on you, then coming here, having a fan base turn on you, and then just now you get a coach that's able to teach you and believes in you. And, now everybody gets to see the Caleb that we've seen from day one, and so, and everyone's always asked me, like, isn't it just amazing that Caleb's playing so well? And I'm like, not really. Not really. I've watched him do this for a long time. He just needed someone to help and guide him and get him there. And Coach Woods has been able to do that. And, so I think for him, it was just kind of all of that because it was Oklahoma State, because of the history there, and just the way we won. I think all of those emotions just came to a head for him at the same time. And, it was a pretty emotional experience for all of us to see him like that.
All right. Very last thing before we go, I've got like 4 or 5 people who are like, hey, can Connor give us a status update on his foot? You mentioned last week that Kansas is the most likely target out there, but Utah's still an outside possibility. Is everything still trending?
Yeah. No, I think, as of right now, timeline is still the same, where the surgeon feels 100% confident in Kansas and feels totally comfortable with me playing in that game. It's really going to come down to, so next week I'll have another set of x-rays. And if those x-rays look good, then I'll be able to start walking in my boot. And they'll probably have me walk in the boot for 2 or 3, maybe 4 days, just to get my body used to being weight bearing again. And then I'll go and have my CT scan done. And that's kind of the big one. That's because that's the most detailed picture we'll get of the fracture.
Yeah.
And, Dr. Fox said if the ring of bone around that fracture looks clean and it looks like it's healing really nicely, he's like, then it's green light go. And, the challenge then becomes, it's how quickly can I get from being weight bearing to being ready to play in a college football game. And so as of right now, I would be cleared to start doing things on my foot and cleats and doing some footwork and getting used to starting to run again on the Monday of the week of Utah.
Okay.
And so it's like, that's the challenge is honestly not, the bone in my foot. Once that's healed, these screws, it's like putting rebar in concrete. Once you've allowed it to heal all the way, that bone in a lot of ways is stronger than it was before. But the challenge is everything around it is weaker because I've been non-weight bearing for so long, allowing it to heal. And so that's the challenge. That's the issue. And so, that's why Dr. Fox is a lot more comfortable with me easing into practice the week of Utah, not playing the week of Utah, and then being full go, ready to go the Monday of Kansas, being able to participate in everything, to put me in the best position to where I don't hurt something else.
Sure.
And so that's the challenge right now. And I'm interested to see how it all goes because I've been working so hard in the pool and doing cardio with Coach Phyllis, and the training staff is having me do a ton of BFR, blood flow restriction, which essentially is a way to trick your muscles into thinking you're loading them without loading them. And so, like, just from BFR alone, my quad and calf are starting to come back, like, in size, which is kind of interesting. You know, I didn't think BFR would be able to do that, but it has. And so, like, that stuff is going to make the transition a lot quicker. But we're just not sure yet how if I'm going to be able to transition that fast. And so I would say if that CT looks immaculate, like it looks incredible, then Dr. Fox will be like, okay, we can push it a little harder this week and give it a shot. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really going to come down to that imaging, you know, and then worst case scenario, we'll see if I can dress for the Utah game and kind of be an emergency. If we have some injuries and if I just have to go in and close a game or something like that, like maybe I'll be in that situation. I don't know. We'll just have to see, but it's all going to be determined by how good that CT scan looks.
In case of emergency, break the Connor Pay glass. I like that. All right. Well, Connor, best of luck against the Knights. Looking forward to this one. Enjoy the bounce house. Funny enough, I have actually stood on the 50-yard line of that field. I was down there on vacation one time with my wife, and we drove over to the stadium. Nobody was around. I walked into the stadium, walked out to the 50-yard line, looked around, and just left. So
love it. It's a cool place.
It is.
I play there.
Should be a raucous.
I'm excited to watch there.
Well, yeah. You'll still experience it all the same, right?
True.
All right. Well, that's Connor Pay. Big thank you as always, Connor. Look forward to catching up with you next week when it officially becomes rivalry 2 weeks, I guess, in many respects.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. Peace.
And hopefully we'll be talking about a win as well next week. So as for Connor, I'm Jake. Big thank you as always for all your guys' support of the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day, whatever you've got going on. And as always, be back with us again soon right here on Locked On Cougars. And as always, I should make sure I mention this on the way out. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first view and or listen of the day is what we always like to say. And thank you to all of you once again who are everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.